Can you explain one more time what is happening here? You can't go inside. What do you mean I can't come in? This place is off limits for peasants. But I've built this from scratch. Okay, go ask the chief for a permit. But I am the chief! God damn it! Anyways, this is how it goes. I've started a small challenge for myself to make a beautiful village. And the twist is that I will build anything that you guys can come up with. This time, Feta Cheese had the top comment. Don't worry, Brenda, you're safe for now. Never did I ever build a structure that high, and to be honest, I was a bit nervous. So I pushed myself over the bar and made this thing. Don't really know if I nailed it or not, but I really enjoyed the way it ended up. And once again, I'm asking for your help to make this village grow. What should I make next? Hit me with your best idea. The top comment I will try to create in my next video. And with all that said, let's get building. I don't know much about towers, but first things first. To start things off, gotta find a flat surface to build on. And what can be a better place than a flat surface that is closest to your central build? To be honest, this is the first serious watchtower that I'm making. Every other attempt was made with some random things mixed together, but this time things will be different. As soon as I saw the suggestion, I fell in love with the idea, and even had a vision for the project. The whole plan was to build a tower out of 4 sections. The first one would be a repair shop and an armory for the melee units. The second floor would be a strategy room and a small supply room. The third will serve as a restroom for the archers. And the fourth one will be the archer's nest, obviously. I've chosen the stone for the base of the tower as it brings a bit of a bulkiness and medieval touch to it. Then dismantled one of the sides to make an entrance. I mean, you gotta get inside somehow, right? The next step is to make a decent shape for the second floor. To make sure that the construction could hold the weight of the floors, I've placed a couple of iron poles and made a box on top of the stone. The main idea for the tower is that the every next section will be thinner than the previous one. So I've placed a couple of 1 meter beams and did a simple outline for the next floor. As well, made a simple window frame with 3 windows, 2 small ones on the sides and a bigger one in the middle. The main focus here was to bring some extra light to the place and get a nice view from all of the stories. And to somehow even get to see that view, I've made an ordinary spiral staircase in the middle. And finally placed some tiles on the second floor. Then repeated the whole thing to get to the next section. At this point of building, I didn't really know what style should I choose for the third floor, but I knew for sure that every floor will be unique. So after making myself some ground to stand on, I've proceeded to cover up the iron beams. They looked fine as they were, but it wasn't really my cup of tea to build around them. Then I made a box similar to the floor below, but this time it's more narrow. The next step was to cover up the walls. So I split it into 2 sections. The first layer is a simple diagonal cage on all of the sides. I've wanted it to look more unique, and by adding a couple of core beams to the upper part, made it look more fancy. As well, created a bit more sturdiness to the overall look. At least that's what was going through my brain at the moment. And to finish up the tower core, placed a couple of iron poles and covered them up. As well, added a small ledge. And cover up the floor with a simple pattern. The next step was to make a roof. As this is a watchtower, it should have an option to look in every direction possible. I even added a small ledge for the roof, so it looks a bit more interesting. And by using a couple of crosses, managed to shorten the beams and bring it that medieval look. So the main frame for this project was complete, but there is still a lot of details that are missing. Fun fact, did you know that the word Viking really means pirate or raider in Old Norse language? Neither did I. Now let's get back to more building stuff. Next up was to make this whole composition more dynamic and attractive. In some of my previous work, I've started to play around with black marble. Usually I stay as far as possible from this material, but for some reason I'm starting to love the shapes of it and its dark texture that brings a bit of solemnity to the composition. Then placed a couple of arches to get a bit more depth to the walls. And completely reconstructed the last layer of stone. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the composition was too bland and was in need of more texture on all of the sides. That's why to complete the overall look, I've added a couple of black marble stairs and a mixture of wooden walls, beams and crosses. And a couple of small details to the front so it stands out. The last step before going up was to finish the entrance, so it's more suited for this structure. The first floor is ready. And in my eyes it looks really amazing. Now let's move to the next one. At first, the second floor wasn't that complicated with details. But the more I've looked at it, the more I added. It became more like an obsession. You know that feeling when you just can't get enough, no matter how much you do. And at one point I've even added a small roof and a couple of crosses just to complement the texture for the windows. And no matter how much I've added, still something was missing. So I've placed a couple of items to transform this creation into something beautiful. After this section was done, I've made some small adjustments to the third floor. It was already fine as it was. Just wanted to make it a bit more dynamic. As well, place some logs on the bottom of the ledge, just to get that nice slope. And some banners. Who doesn't love banners? And finally, for the last floor, the archer's nest. The first step was to make some railings. So I've twisted the 1 meter beams to make it look sharp. And sealed everything with some core wood beams. However, the main focus here was the intersection. So I started off by placing a bunch of ashwood dividers on the columns. And complemented them with a mixture of dark wood arches and some ashwood beams and crosses. And to brighten up the place, inserted a couple of lava lamps in the middle of the pillars by using a temporary beam to get the right height, then covering everything with some more dividers to get that small socket effect. And to finish the nest, covered all of the spots that were sticking out like a sore thumb. When that was out of the way, there was only one thing left. The heart of the tower, the staircase. At first, I had an idea to cover everything up with walls, just to make it simple and functional. But after a while staring at it, something was missing. After a couple of experiments, it clicked. The best solution for this barrel to look good was simply by adding a second layer of pillars. And to make it look more spicy, I've mashed some regular and ashwood beams to the mix. And on this note, the tower was officially finished. Obviously, I did a bit more adjustments to this place, like decorations and stuff. and even added a couple of NPCs to make the build not only look, but feel more lively as well. By the way, Klaus, if you're watching, thank you for the advice. The tower is finally complete, so let me show you what's behind those doors. This place is really small, but that didn't stop me from making a repair unit on one side and an armory for the warriors on the other. The second floor holds a small planning room, to be able to sort your incomes and give the soldiers some extra gold and resupply them with provision. The third floor is meant to be a resting place for the archers. As the Watchtower work continues through the night, they should have a place to relax. And the last one is the nest, a high vantage point with a nice view, from which you can spot any sort of incoming threats. At first, I wanted to place 4 towers in each corner of this village and give a different name to each one, but for the lack of buildings to protect, I've postponed this idea for later. And to make this happen, don't forget to give me suggestions what build should come next. And as always, I will see you soon in the next one. And how about now? Do you recognize me? Archers, aim! Oh fuck.